Greetings, fair listeners, and thank you for joining me once again as we celebrate stories and storytelling in all their forms and the bards and artists who bring them all to life. I am the Tale Collector and your host, Erica Adams. Warning, this story contains mature themes regarding sexuality. Listener and researcher discretion is advised. My first piece of theater experience came in the 5th grade when I played the role of Kanga in Winnie the Pooh. The costume was sweltering, the tail alone felt like half my body weight, and literally 99.9% of my lines consisted of nothing except, quote, my precious little Roo. Still, I had enough fun to join as the curtain puller for Charlotte's Web the following year. My second came in college, when I volunteered to help backstage for the December 2010 production of White Christmas at the Duluth Playhouse. If those times taught me anything, it's that what occurs behind the curtain can be just as interesting, if not more, than what happens in front of it. I was reminded of this upon seeing what has since become one of my favorite plays superbly performed by the UMD Theater Department. I can't properly discuss the story in play form since I can only experience it as such once, but I can discuss the next best thing, the movie. I present to you Stage Beauty, released in 2004 and rated R for sexual content and language. Of all the women to swoon and scream and die on the 17th century London stage, there is no man who does so more beautifully than Ned Keeneston. Specializing in exclusively playing female characters, Keeneston thrives on the cheers of his bedazzled audience as the tragic Desdemona of Shakespeare's Othello, as well as the attention of the admirers, both male and female, seduced by his feminine charms. But unbeknownst to him, his assistant, Maria, yearns to act professionally herself in spite of the Puritan law which forbids it. Word of her growing popularity from her underground tavern performances eventually reaches the ears of none other than King Charles II. So intrigued is he by the very idea that he decrees that henceforth, not only can women now legally become employed actresses, but it will now be illegal for male actors to play roles of the opposite sex. This puts Keeneston in a terrible position. Now out of work and unable to convincingly act the role of a male, Keeneston's career and social standing are all but destroyed. With the unlikely help of Maria, now London's most prominent actress, Keeneston strives to reclaim his former glory on the stage by learning to act like the man he is. Jeffrey Hatcher's 1999 play on which this film is based, Complete Female Stage Beauty, was in turn inspired by the extensive writings of Samuel Pepys, administrator for the English Navy and a member of Parliament. In his private diary, he made several references to real-life actor Edward Kynaston, one of the last of what were called boy players, young male actors who regularly played females, and whom Pepys said was, quote, the loveliest lady that ever I saw in my life. That being said, Stage Beauty concerns itself less with historical accuracy than with engaging its audience, the very definition of theater. According to director Richard Eyre on the DVD commentary, the play acting within the film was actually an invented combination of the acting common in 1600s Britain and Japanese kabuki, resulting in a style that is heavily expressive and reliant on gesturing and physical motion. And speaking of heavy expression, there are a few characters here that aren't as dramatic as those upon the stage they so adore. I think their particular traits are lended further strength by the casting as well. I remember Rupert Everett best from his role as Oberon in Michael Hoffman's 1999 adaptation of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. He brings a similar aloofness, passive aggression, and love of personal pleasure to Charles II. Sir Charles Sedley may lack the blustering, short-fused temper Harry Potter's Vernon Dursley was given by the late Richard Griffiths, but this is made up for by the same pompous and entitled attitude, with a girth to match. But Keeneston is by far the most theatrical character, in every sense of the word. Being 36 at the time, Billy Crudup brilliantly puts both the boy and the player in his boy-player protagonist, who in turn puts a rather promiscuous spin on the concept of method acting. Kynaston is extremely proud of his ability to use his apparent bisexuality to his advantage when it comes to entertaining his devoted fans and his female guys. But he is also selfish, spoiled, and narcissistic, going so far as to not only casually throw his groupies' honor to the wolves, but immaturely prank said wolves with the hidden manhood under his dress. Naturally, Kynaston scoffs at the idea of women acting. Like any other supposedly difficult task, playing a woman's role is a man's job, he says, an idea Iyer laughingly calls, quote, magnificently absurd. But this rejection goes deeper than the mindset of male superiority. Kynaston brags about all the training he endured and all the tricks he learned to become a woman, which he deludes himself into believing makes him a better expert on womanhood than the real thing, his 5 positions of feminine subjugation speech being especially cringeworthy. In his mind, there is neither skill nor novelty in a woman playing a woman, because a woman is what she already is. It is by becoming what one is not by nature that marks the versatile genius of a true actor. But the new law strips Kynaston naked in ways that have nothing to do with costumes and makeup. It was as a woman that he had felt empowered and whole. When that's taken away and he permanently becomes an ordinary man again, he is revealed for the sham he is, unwanted and unloved now that the illusion has vanished. What's worse, having been what he isn't on the stage for so long, he doesn't know anymore who or even what he actually is in real life, nor does he initially have the courage to face that harsh truth. During the distressing scene in which the Duke of Buckingham, his secret lover, vehemently spells that out for him, Kynaston's teary-eyed expression is that of a naive child whose playtime fantasy bubble has burst. His fall from grace is truly complete when he tries to recite Othello's lines, a male's lines, before the royal court, only for him to break down like a rank amateur with the worst stage fright. And yet it is Maria, the new star of London, the one who had suffered Kynaston's bullying and took away his spotlight, who remains his one true friend. Thanks in part to a pragmatic performance by Claire Danes, Maria is arguably the only real character in this entire movie. She wants to be a serious actress because it brings her joy, not to make her former master suffer, and she does show genuine guilt and concern upon witnessing his downward spiral. But she is neither a dumb fangirl nor a suck-up. She is the mother figure and teacher the childish Kynaston so desperately needs, not rubbing his failure in his face, but unafraid to admonish him for his faults. As much as Maria wishes to emulate the skill of the man she admires, it is that very skill which fuels her frustration toward him. Even in his finest performances, never once had he portrayed a woman realistically. His way was that of a doll, airy and attractive, but lifeless and unnatural. Just because actors pretend doesn't mean their characters should. They should feel and act like the live human beings they truly are in all their real and ugly glory, not just toss their heads and die beautifully. I wouldn't call Stage Beauty a paradoxical or ironic story, so much as a story full of paradoxes and ironies. What could have been just a long string of Shakespearean-tongued gay jokes, or a tedious soap opera among promiscuous British royals and stage play actors, is instead a funny, evocative, and fascinating study of preconceived gender roles and sexual identity as seen through the surreal but enlightening lens of theater. Just as the Bard himself called men and women merely players on the stage we call the world, our parts and lines are constantly being dictated by the social standards around us. But oftentimes, it takes more than a single role to establish one's true character. Gather around next time for another tale you may have forgotten or have never heard before. Until then, listeners, may inspiration always find you.